Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, Donald Trump, he is gaining once again. It seemed like for a while there were a decent amount of polls that showed him losing some ground for whatever reason. I speculated in my last video that was because Democrats know that he's not going to be replaced. So, soft Democrat support is coming home to him right now, even though those people may be the least likely Biden supporters to end up turning out, ironically enough. And on the flip side, we saw after Iowa when Trump just demolished the entire field in the Republican Party, he saw a surge. He went up from a 1-point lead to like a 4.3-point lead. He just came down a little bit from that. But either way, that was never sustainable. And Biden seeing this massive surge that would never stop when he's like so unpopular was also not sustainable. And on top of that, we see a poll out of Michigan, out of Mitchell Research Group. Donald Trump has a lead of 6 percentage points in the state of Michigan. This is absolutely huge. You're looking at Trump and Biden. Trump has a 6-point lead over Joe Biden in this poll. He's leading independent voters by 15%. He's making some inroads among union voters, but he's just running up the score with those white working class voters, and that we know. But on top of it, it's just like this is largely due to this administration and the fact that they just don't have a lot of policies that are very popular for Michigan. Because you talk about these electric vehicle mandates, they are decimating the auto industry, which is the lifeblood of Metro Detroit. Whether you're a blue-collar worker or a white-collar worker or whatever, a lot of people that live in suburban Detroit, in some, case, they work in the auto industry one way or another. So the fact that Donald Trump is running a campaign, he's targeting these union voters and he's talking to people in the auto industry. He's talking about this. Remember the whole bloodbath hoax that the media tried to spin? That was all because of the auto industry and because the media just brought so much attention to it. I feel like it backfired and the real people understood what he was trying to say and it's helped him. On top of that, you have Gretchen Whitmer going out there and incentivizing people to house illegal aliens in the state of Michigan. That is not something that's a winning issue. Michigan does have a lot of illegal aliens because under this administration, every state has become a border state. It's not like they just stay in Eagle Pass, Texas, which is a big problem, but it's not just Texas or Arizona. It's all across the country. Even a state like Michigan, it's become a big problem. And also a state that's very similar to Michigan, across the pond, Wisconsin. This is a state that is also a Rust Belt state, voted Republican once since 1984. Donald Trump looking to have it in his column once again. And he's expanded his lead in the Marquette poll. Marquette is a pollster that is typically run by, it seems like, never Trump Republicans, and that we know. In the primaries, the polls look worse for Trump than they look now, but they were an outlier in the primary against Trump, but now they have Trump defeating Biden by 2 and expanding his lead in Wisconsin. This is one of the only pollsters that, kind of nailed the Senate race margin in 2022. They were the only pollster in the aggregate that had Tony Evers not losing. So the fact that they have Trump up by 2 is actually a very good sign in terms of gauging the likely voter turnout. And on top of that, what's more interesting is the Senate race is a dead heat. Tammy Baldwin, we hear from the left, she's a popular incumbent. She can connect with the working class. Yeah, well, she votes with Biden like 100% of the time. And Republicans are running a strong candidate in Eric Hovde. I was skeptical initially. I didn't know much about the guy. Seems like he was just a wealthy businessman. Thought he'd be like a Dave McCormick type. But he's very likable, and he's running a very solid campaign so far. He has the Trump endorsement, but he may be able to, do better than Trump in some counties like the wow counties surrounding Milwaukee. But he is somebody who's strong enough to the point where Baldwin should very well be on notice. Keep in mind that there has been 0 Senate races lost by Republicans in states Trump won on the same ballot in history. I mean, that streak might come to an end because it doesn't seem like Pennsylvania is going to flip if Donald Trump even takes the state narrowly. But, his coattails do matter, and they do count. And those low propensity voters that sit out the midterms in rural Wisconsin, those are the type of people that don't really vote usually. But if they're voting for Trump, in many cases, they will down ballot vote for the Republican no matter what. That is big news for Eric Hovde. He's doing very well in the likely voter sample. When they factor in the leaners, it's a dead heat, it's a tie, and he has a lot of money, and he's just barely begun to really spend. So Democrats are in shambles. They really are. And it gets even worse because Biden's Hail Marys are falling flat. Can't win on the economy, can't win on the border, can't win on the crime issue. There's really no issue that he can milk. So he's trying to milk the abortion thing, which is not working out for him because Donald Trump came out and said, I'm going to leave it to the states. Biden is saying we're going to decide it nationally, codify Roe. He can't decide it nationally. He had a trifecta. He's not going to be able to codify it. I think most people know that by now. And leaving it to the states polls better than deciding it nationally. And it's important to note that some of the people that want it decided nationally are people that want it banned nationally. So it's even better for Donald Trump when you look at this. Leaving it to the states is a winning issue for Trump. He can focus on other issues. And Biden trying to milk it is just not working because a lot of states, besides Arizona, which is still up in the air, they have it codified in some way or another to the point where it's not going to be a big issue for people voting in those states. Yes, the left in those states is going to care about it. Yes, they're going to turn out. A lot of those people are the same people that are going to turn out anyways. But for a lot of those like far left voters in these other states like Michigan, the whole Israel-Palestine thing, that probably trumps abortion, no pun intended. And those voters are very disillusioned with Biden. But you're looking at this and it's like, seriously, this is not something that's good. Now, I did a video on my exclusive website for members only talking about the Arizona update with that whole decision there on the topic. If you guys want to go watch it, it's 16 cents a day, $5 a month, redeaglepolitics.com. You guys know the drill. But still, the fact that in most other states, it's not really moving the needle. If anything, Trump's position is more popular than Biden's position is insane. And it's true. This is even funnier. Biden's approval rating on the issue of abortion is minus 13. Talking about, oh, Biden's so popular when it comes to abortion. How can you really milk this issue and win on this issue when you have a minus 13 approval on the issue? It's like, yeah, we know Biden's stance may be more popular with the general public, but when you're president and things don't really happen that are, good in the eyes of a lot of people, it doesn't really reflect good on you. Yes, we understand that it may not have been Biden's fault for the overturning of Roe or whatever. But still, when these things happen under your watch and you don't do enough to really mitigate it, it's a bad look. Look at the riots under Trump, for example. Trump was opposed to them, but still, when it came down to it, there were questions about could he use constitutional authority to really put them out. Personally, I wish he would have done a little bit more or tried to do more, but I understand both sides of that debate. And it's like, of course, the rioting was done by the left, but when you're in office and you don't do enough to stop it, even a lot of the people that were anti the rioting, a lot of people were, I guess you would say left off the table on that issue by Donald Trump because of the fact that he didn't really have this appearance as he was like taking a stand on it or whatever with action. And Biden, I feel like you kind of see a similar thing with his own base where this isn't about abortion, it's about Joe Biden. And even though possibly it being on the ballot in Arizona this November is going to increase liberal turnout, will it be enough to eat into Trump's 4.5% polling lead? I can't say it exactly will. Also because you have more third-party candidates, people that are disillusioned with Biden but want to, vote on the abortion referendum. Jill Stein's an option for those people. And they have nothing. They really have nothing when it's all said and done. That's why they're trying to indict him. And it's bogus. We know we have to talk a little bit about the case, give an update on it in this video, but it's just bogus. We know that it's bogus. We know it's a political witch hunt. There's no evidence he broke any laws in the case because hush money, if it happened, was not inherently illegal. There's no campaign or business records that were falsified to our knowledge. If he did that, though, it's not jail time. It's not what he's exactly being tried for. It would be a small misdemeanor. He was not concealing any crimes. people will say, well, technically, what about if adultery is a crime or whatever? That's basically an antiquated law, for one. For two, it's funny to see the left actually try and pretend to care about that. For three, this supposed affair happened allegedly in Nevada, where it's not exactly illegal. And are they going to be able to prove it happened beyond a reasonable doubt anyways in a normal court of law? No, they would not be able to. Also, the FEC reviewed it back in 2019, decided there was no evidence of wrongdoing. And then you could look at other people who did similar things, like John Edwards. He was acquitted when he went under fire for actually covering up for a proven affair with campaign money, whereas Hillary Clinton, we all know about the Steele dossier, Fusion GPS, the Russia hoax. She basically bought the insurance policy for Trump's presidency that undermined it with $1 million of her own campaign money. She did get a small fine, but it was just a small slap on the wrist, and that was far more egregious than anything that happened to do with Trump in this case. But on top of it, it's like, if it was really that serious, why wait until Trump announces his 2024 bid? Every single little thing that has to do with this case, people that have an IQ above 5 and can view things even slightly objectively can understand that this case is nonsense. It's 100% nonsense. The judge is a donor to Biden. He has family that's worked for Biden. The fact that he can preside over this case is just ridiculous. The fact you can have a jury that's fair in 90% plus Biden, New York, or at least this part of New York is close to 90% for Biden, although it does seem as if that might be changing a little bit this election cycle. But on top of it, they're just trying to keep Trump in the courtroom instead of the campaign trail. That's all this really has to deal with. Now, he's going to be campaigning, but can he campaign as much? No. And again, the same side that talks about democracy. They say Putin is wrong because he jails his political opponents, this, that, and the other thing. They're doing the same thing. It's over total bogusness. It's not like they're following the law whatsoever. Not only is it selective prosecution, they're changing and twisting the law. They had to change the statute of limitations to make this a case to begin with. For one, that's corruption. For two, they campaigned on, we're going to get Trump, we're going to get Trump. Didn't specifically say on what. I guess this is what they decided to settle on. And this is also the only trial that likely will be taking place of the 4 bogus trials before the election anyways. But still, it's not about the rule of law, it's about politics. That's all it has to deal with. And I thought it would be important to talk about the jury because people are going to be like, well, you know, what if Trump goes out there? Is he going to get convicted in this case? It's such a weak case, but still we understand that this is a court that is basically going to be skewed against him regardless. And looking at the juror pool, it's definitely a mixed bag. You can look at this. You can go through the jurors that have been selected so far. This guy, he reads the New York Times, MSNBC. He is married, has no children, gets his news from New York Times, Daily Mail, some Fox News. So maybe he is, I guess you'd say, center left, maybe center at best. That's probably not a great sign if you watch MSNBC. Then you have juror number 2, who is been a nurse for 15 years, not married, gets news from liberal sources, claims she doesn't have an opinion on Trump. That's, somebody I would anticipate would probably lean towards convicting. Then you have juror 3, who's from Oregon. He's a corporate lawyer, gets his news from sources like New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Google. That's iffy, honestly. Probably a convict, but still, you never know. We don't know where in Oregon he's exactly from. Could be from a red area. Who knows? The 4th juror is probably the one who is most likely of these people to side with Trump. And he says that he finds Trump intriguing. He finds him interesting. And he is somebody who thinks he's fascinating and mysterious. So ultimately speaking, this is probably the juror that could be that 12th juror to go out there and vote to acquit Trump, because it only takes one to hang the jury and probably delay a retrial until after the election. So keep that in mind. It just really takes one to acquit him. The 5th juror is a young black woman, which on paper, the numbers don't look good for Trump if you look at the voting patterns, but still, she did say that she appreciates Trump's candor and says she would rather have Trump in office than somebody who doesn't know what they're thinking, basically hinting she'd vote for Trump over Biden. Now, this is an important thing to note. Sometimes people will sign on to the case and they will be stealth jurors and they will say the right things to seem unbiased, and they're not. Now, technically, it could work in our favor. Some of the people that say, I watch CNN, I don't pay attention to Trump or whatever, maybe those people are secret Trump supporters. So you never know. It could go both ways. This woman could be telling the truth. Maybe she's not telling the truth. Either way, stealth jurors can happen, for one, but for two, there will likely be a decent amount of juror intimidation. So even people that are genuine, it's going to be intriguing to see how this really shakes out. If there's going to be a lot of intimidation, I would not exactly be all that hopeful, but I wouldn't say it's like gloom and doom either. And it's possible they just decide to let it run out and acquit him or whatever, because they understand that these trials are helping Trump, because they're making him a martyr, because it's obvious BS. And maybe they're catching on to that. Maybe that's why the fine was lowered in New York. So maybe it is true that he will get acquitted and he will get a fair trial based off of that fact alone, but it's not going to be because the justice system is necessarily fair. It's because they realize if they hit him with a conviction that it's going to backfire on them, or if they know the jury's going to be hung regardless, they might just decide to go through with a fair trial because they know that it's probably going to help Trump if he gets convicted, because it'll make it a political prosecution, persecution, both of them, honestly. And it's not a good look for them, and it is a good look for Trump. And maybe they've caught on to that, maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen. Still, you look at this, there's other jurors involved. This woman says she gets her news from New York Times, Google, Facebook, and TikTok. We know that she is indeed a liberal. So you look at the juror pool, it's interesting. We'll see what happens on this case. But all of Biden's Hail Marys, whether you talk about the abortion case, whether you talk about potentially the New York case falling apart and or backfiring, it's just all falling flat. And now you're potentially seeing the polling revert back to where the polls were like a month ago. We'll see if this continues, but it's not a good look for Biden. He's been spending a lot of money, but Trump is catching up. So it's still going to be a tough election, but Donald Trump is in a very good position to go out there and win as things stand right now. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.